sometimes we can, even if our bodies pass away, we can just download our brains into separate things.
I don't know if I'd want to do that.
Some people would. I don't understand it, but I'm like, that sounds interesting. But would the emotions keep, or would it not? Or, well, technically the medulla oblongata isn't there, but still.
Yeah. Who knows, man? Who knows?
Indeed.
Whew. Oh, they're here.
Indeed. I never gave you the password.
No, that's okay.
All right,
don't worry about it.
I'll text it to you and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, recording. Yeah. What are we doing?
It's recording right now. Say hello.
Okay. All right. What's going on, everybody? This is Donald Kaczynski here back once again, and with me, as always, is the always awesomely artistic and articulate. I can't do words. Hannah Kubiak.
Hello.
And welcome to the General Geekery podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things geek-related, whether we have a topic or whether we just want to ramble generally. This is not going to be one of those general rambling episodes. Today, we are talking about a topic, well, more importantly, a series that is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm actually really excited that we're having this conversation. Mm-hmm. We are talking about a series of science fiction that heavily influenced my love of science fiction, Ghost in the Shell.
Yep.
Now, I've experienced a series ever since like the early 2000s. Hannah, you had not had any prior showcase of it.
I started watching it yesterday.
So yeah.
Because I remembered, I said we should talk about Ghost in the Shell. I should watch it. Well, because you've been geeking out about it so much. I'm like, this would be a great topic, even though I'm ignorant. You know? And maybe, I don't know, like this could just be sort of like we did with the dystopias, where like you tell me a lot about it. Like I watched some of it.
Yeah.
And I kind of understand it, and I have sort of like references to make to it based on things that I've read and my love of science fiction and all that. So, some background on this.
Ghost in the Shell originally started off as a Japanese manga series, or comics for those who are not familiar with Japanese culture, back in the 80s by creator Shiro Masamune. It's a great manga. A lot of themes revolve around cybernetic enhancements, religious imagery, morality, individualism, things like that, and it was awesome. But it gained a lot more attention in, especially in the West, in the mid to late 90s with the anime film that was released about it.
Oh, there was a film?
Movie? There was a film.
Okay.
I have it back. My little brother took it with him when he was in college, but he's back with it. I can lend it to you.
Nice.
So it started off with that, and that film was one of the pieces of anime that really popularized anime in the West during the 90s, alongside things like Akira, Dragon Ball Z, Cowboy Bebop, things like that. Mm-hmm. Fast forward a few years later to like 2004-ish, mm-hmm. and a anime series was released called Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, mm-hmm. which is what Hannah saw.
That's what I've seen.
Yeah. I own almost everything, every piece of screen media of Ghost in the Shell. Mm-hmm. Because it's one of my favorite series of all time, not just in anime, but also in sci-fi.
Yeah.
And the Standalone Complex series is a really well done series. Like when it was originally released, like it was probably like maybe 1 or 2 episodes every month. So it wasn't like a weekly thing that was honestly released. And you can kind of tell in the animation quality for the show, like how well done it is. Like it's well done. Even considering like a lot of stuff that's released today in Japanese anime.
Yeah.
Like you can tell a lot of care was put into it, and even though the story is different from the original manga and animated movie, it retains the themes of the source material, which I believe it was very important. It creates its own identity, but it's still in the same universe. So, that's just me. So, Hannah, you said you only got through a little bit of it?
Yeah, I got through, I think... Yeah, I got through 2 discs, which was 8, and I think I watched a few more. So I think I watched like 10 episodes of it.
And you're watching the first season
the standalone complex.
All right, the first series of standalone complex, the first 24 episodes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, initial thoughts.
Well, it made me think of a lot of the themes that I spoke about when we talked about dystopias, actually. Like you mentioned...
Pen down.
Pen down. You mentioned individuality and humanity and sort of enhancing people to make them more effective, things like that. And like we were just talking about before we started recording, really, about whether or not we'd like to have our brain uploaded to something. I don't think I would want to. But right. Yeah, it really depends, because I've always kind of wondered if you're a cyborg. I actually wrote a short story about this.
Okay.
That, yeah, actually it is published in an anthology. I wrote a short story about this, where there's a person who they get these cybernetic implants and stuff, and it sort of explores at what point do you stop being a human being, kind of,
right,
and become a machine instead? Like how much can those two things coexist? Because I know that people have prosthetic limbs and things like that, and you can have the technology to make those move based on your brain waves.
Yep.
I think that the brain is really, like, once your brain gets replaced,
right,
because that's what controls everything. And I think that organic matter controlling everything initially, or from the start, is really what makes you a human instead of a
right
person. Like your consciousness and everything is human. And I think that if your limbs are cybernetic, you're still essentially human. You're not a robot.
Yeah, and it actually brings up a thing that's like constantly on that. So you talk about like the brain is like one of the big things about a human in the universe of Ghost in the Shell with all of these. As more and more people are becoming more cyborg-esque, a big thing that is integral to the show is the concept of what's known as a cyber brain. Which basically, it's still a human brain, but it has been altered in a way where your brain and your eyes function like a computer.
Yeah.
Almost like if you were wearing like a VR headset.
At all times.
Almost like if you had like a VR headset and then you can pull up like information from the net.
Right.
It's like if your brain was connected to full free roam phone data.
Yeah. Oh man.
And like that concept has always really resonated with me, and I'm like, that's I'm like, that is such an interesting concept.
Yeah.
And it says a lot now, especially like in the universe of like the show and the source material. Like, it's not that far off from where we are right now.
Yeah, it takes place in 2030.
Yeah, 2030s is where this universe takes place. So essentially, like the cyberization stuff like should have happened either this past decade of the 2010s or in this decade of the 2020s.
Right.
So yeah, there's like cyborg parts where you can like replace some your eyes or things like that. And it's mainly shown that because the main cast of the show is a private security force of people that have cybernetic implants called Section 9.
Yeah.
And some of them are made up of ex-military, former police officers, things like that. But all of them have had are cyberized in one way or another. All of them have a cyber brain. And some of them have like different alterations. Like some have more altered eyes. Some have cybernetic limbs and things like that. But it's basically like each of the stories. Like even if there's like I should explain the story arc like of how it's set up. In the first season, there are standalone episodes where it's just like one single story that doesn't tie into like the overall plot, but explores the world.
Yeah, kind of like Monster of the Week.
Kind of, yeah.
But it's Android of the Week.
Yeah, kind. We'll talk about that episode too. And then the other one is a constant story arc that goes through the first series, which is the case of the Laughing Man. And I know it takes a while for that one to get in because the first few episodes deal with like a lot of world building. And I think it's the world building that I want to talk about more since I love like the world that this series creates. So I know you mentioned the androids.
Yeah.
In like the first 5 episodes, I believe the episode title is Android and I or Android and Me. There is an episode where we find out androids exist. And there's different models of like androids and things like that. There is an episode where a particular cult following favorite model of androids are committing suicide.
Right.
Or
they're just walking into lakes or whatever.
Jumping off buildings and everything like that. And and Section 9 is trying to figure out what's going on.
And they're all the same model.
They're all the same model. I mean, like they sound the same and everything like that. Like their style different, but they're basically like the same model.
Yeah.
And so as we're following along in the story, we find out that spoiler alert for those who have not seen the show. It was a guy basically doing this because he wanted his model of the android to be unique and perfect, to be the only one.
The model is the Jerry model. Right?
The Jerry model, yes. That is what the android is called.
Yeah, he wanted to have the only one because he wanted her to be his girlfriend or something. They were going to run away together, and he says like, no one understands me like you do, and I can't talk to other girls.
And it seems like and it seems like she's gaining like sentience or anything like that. But then you find out like at the end, like most of the stuff that she was talking about came from a classic movie. Well,
right,
classic movie in universe.
Yeah. So all of her emotions and her decisions, quote unquote, that she seemed to be making were actually just her copying things that she had seen on TV.
And that was like, wow, like damn.
It was kind of like that. I made a bot watch 1,000 hours of Trump rallies and then wrote its own.
Yeah, kind of like that. Like if you expose the AI to something enough, like it starts to take that on as its own because it doesn't have like any pre-programmed things or things like that.
Right. Yeah.
And I think this was brought up in that episode too, because like the investigation for the Jerrys like reached the news media outlet, and they're trying to figure out if the androids committing suicide can technically be considered suicide.
Right. Yeah, they mentioned that.
Yeah, so like that was like a very poignant thing because it shows in this world like it's still taking in the middle of like a transition period where cybernetics and androids and cyborgs and everything like that are becoming more commonplace, but they're still trying to find like a middle ground. And it's like, okay, what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, and they're trying to sift through this large gray area.
Right, yeah. I had a thought. I'm trying to remember what it was. Nope. I'll come up. It'll come back.
It'll come to you. And
let me think. The other episode that was really, really fascinating to me was, I think it was one of the ones where the laughing man finally showed up, and he was hacking people's brains and having them make his declarations. Like their brain would just kind of like fizzle, and then they'd start saying sing stuff like "I am the laughing hand."
Like when the entire crowd, like when all of like the random people like just start like just going like tell the truth.
Yep. Yeah. So when their brains get hacked, which oh man.
Yeah, that's kind of like whoa, that's a thing.
Yeah, when their brains get hacked, and I don't know, I don't like that idea.
Yeah, like that's like a lot of like stuff that really happens a lot in the shows. Like with like the cyber brains, it's like okay, yeah, there's like a lot of stuff like that, but like there is like a large like area of like gray and black that is just like this still happens. But the unfortunate thing is that like. It's still going to continue because this is like the beginning of everything like that. Like it's almost like it's like media pirating like back when like the internet started to be getting more commonplace and more accessible. Yeah. Almost like that. Yeah. Only human lives.
Yeah. It's kind of like
it's not really a good connection to make, but you know what? I couldn't think of anything else.
Yeah. It's sort of if you've got all these functions that go on in your brain that are done by machines, it's sort of like how much control do you really have?
Well, with cyber brains, I think they've mentioned it like sometime in the show. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there is like they're able to like protect themselves using like firewalls and stuff like that, similar to like how computers work.
Oh, right. Okay, and they have like there's a virus that goes out, and then they say, "All right, well, we gotta cook up an antidote now and send it."
Yes, yeah.
So it's kind of like a disease, like a plague. If you get hacked, or if you do have some sort of glitch.
Yeah, but then they figure out like it's not like some kind of like virus or anything like that. They don't know like what it is.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, there's that.
Yikes.
And then did you see the? I'm pretty sure you saw this one, but it was like one of the first few episodes. A man recently died, but he had his brain uploaded into a military tank.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, where his parents, for religious reasons, didn't want him to do that, and so it was something like, "Once I'm dead, I'm free. I'm unfettered from my soul." Yeah,
exactly. And that was like a big thing with like the building of this world is that like there are people that do not want to be cyberized. There are still flesh and blood humans that exist in this world that do not have cyber brains or anything like that. Yeah. So. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of. The first couple of episodes actually kind of reminded me of IRobot. If you've ever, have you ever read the book?
Yeah,
IRobot. So each chapter is kind of like a. So they've got the 3 laws of cybernetics. Is that what it is?
Yeah, the 3 laws.
The 3 laws, and then there's a bunch of stories just sort of explaining or giving an example of how those laws work and how you can create a loophole. Like there's a thing where androids can't run for office. Right. Basically. And there's this one guy who people start to think that he's an android because he's very peaceful. He's never done harm to anybody or anything like that. And then because one of the programmings for an android is that an android cannot harm a human being or by an action allow a human being to be harmed. Right. And so what ended up happening was there was some sort of where this whole scandal was going where they were saying this guy who's running for office, he's an android and he should prove that he's not an android. And some random guy came up at a rally and attacked him and he punched him back. So they're all like, okay, so he just harmed a human being. I guess he's a real person. But what nobody realized was that the person who came up and attacked him was also an android. So, oh my god! Yeah, so then they had an android as president because of that. You could just play around these loopholes. Yeah, that's pretty nuts. Yeah, and that's almost similar to like how like the structure for this world works as well. With like there's like all these different like policies and laws and things like that. But like there are so many loopholes around it, and and that's why like we follow the security team is because they're trying to like
maintain everything.
Yeah.
Although through militaristic means, because like more than 5 of them were military people.
Right. Yeah. The I'm trying to think. There's a guy who I'm trying to remember which one he is. He's the guy with the like, it's kind of like brownish hair, and he
with a brown beard and mustache.
I think so. I don't know.
Kind of scruffy looking, older sounding.
No, not the old guy. The younger guy. He's not the one with the eyes. He's the other guy.
Oh, with the mullet who carries around the revolver.
The mullet with the revolver. Yeah.
Togasa.
So my question about him is, they had some conversation in like the first episode where he was at the firing range or something, and she said something about if you would just cave and get a cybernetic, get a cybernetic body, you wouldn't have to practice at the shooting range all the time. What's his deal? Is he not an android at all? Or?
So, he, out of all of the people in Section 9, he is the one who has the least amount of cybernetics done to him.
Oh, okay.
All he has is a cyber brain.
Oh, okay.
And all he has is a cyber brain, and that's it. Otherwise, he's mostly flesh and blood.
Okay.
He used to be a former police officer that was transferred into the unit.
Right. Okay. All right. I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
It was sort of like, it was a kind of a cool thing where the difference between them where...
Yeah, he's the most normal out of
He's the most normal
out of everyone there. Like, if anybody was like to compare themselves to like someone like an everyman or things like that, it would be Togasa.
Yeah. He's a sharpshooter, right? He doesn't need any sort of cybernetic stuff for that. Is that right?
Well, he's more of like on like an investigative thing. Like he's a good shot,
right? But
he's not the sharpshooter on the team.
That's right. That's the other guy with the eyes.
Yeah, the guy with the eye patch.
That makes sense.
He's like the second least one with like the cybernetics, because all he has that is cyberized is one of his arms and his left eye that is basically linked to a satellite.
Right.
They explain it.
That was so interesting when there was, I think it was the same one where the guy put his brain into a tank, but he was like, if the satellite is hacked, I have to do this, I have one shot just with aiming myself, basically.
Because his profession was a sniper.
Right. So he's good at it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it's just like for like the tiny little things is like the small computer, like they can help with that.
Right. Yeah. And what about the Major? She has just an entire cyber body. Is that?
Yeah, she has an entire cyber body. Like she's our main like like you find out like little tidbits about her life as like the show like goes on and things like that. But based on like the interactions that she has with like people that are from her past, and you can kind of tell like they don't say it outright.
Yeah. Well, it happened when she was really young, right?
Yeah, when she did you see the episode with the little girl?
No.
Oh, okay. You haven't seen it yet. Okay, that hasn't come up.
Yeah.
All right, but there's an episode that's probably going to be coming up for you where like they explain that like a little bit about like the process of cyberizing your body.
Yeah. So do they do that all at once, or do they do it bit by bit?
With the cyberization, some people can do it like all at once, and sometimes they can do it bit by bit. But I think, like, first and foremost, it has to be the cyber brain that comes first.
Oh, right. And then you get used to that. That was really interesting, too, where they had the brain in a case.
Yeah.
And they're like, here, swap brains with me. Woohoo! You know?
That was so weird. That was so damn weird.
The one guy who liked to switch brains with the geishas or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, wait, he's going in there with the geisha? Well, yeah, apparently he likes to swap bodies with them when he's drunk.
And you're like, well, to each your own, I guess. Kind of like...
Welcome to Japan.
This also reminded me of... I think it's a movie... I think it's based off of Kiln People.
Okay.
But what is the movie called? It's got Bruce Willis in it. And
The Fifth Element?
No, not The Fifth Element. Although that one's a trip.
Yeah, that was a trip in its own
Commercial!
right.
Commercial! Yeah, but I'm gonna look up what this is called. But basically, people... Oh, you know what? It might be... No, Blade Runner is based off of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yeah.
Okay. Because this movie, basically, Bruce Willis is he's a cop.
Yeah.
And he has a cyborg body that he uploads his consciousness into, and he himself, his human body, is like lying in a chair at home with like stuff attached to his brain.
Yeah.
So he sends out the cyborg body, and to do things instead of himself.
Right.
Basically, everybody does that. And and what is it called? Oh my gosh! But I'll find it eventually. But
Well, she will be
Surrogates.
back.
It's called Surrogates. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a world where everybody has a surrogate. They get to decide what they look like. Like, his surrogate has a full head of hair and stuff. And then something happens to his surrogate, and he has to go out just as his normal self. And he shows up, and everyone's like, whoa, looking rough, man, you know? And it's just sort of about people sort of going into almost a warped sense of reality by uploading themselves into another form. It's like, maybe just because people are like, oh my gosh, like just being human, it's so miserable, and I'd rather just be what I want to be, and like be invulnerable and be able to just switch off if I want to. Like there's something where he goes to the hair salon where his wife works, and her surrogate is there. Like she's hooked up to it.
Okay.
And she's working, and he goes, and he's like, I never see you anymore. You're always locked in your room. And she said, I see you every day. And he says, no, I see your surrogate every day. And then he, like, starts trying to, he's like, please, just open the door when I get home, and I want to see you face to face. And she's like, no, you can't see me. I'm terrible now. Like, you know, and he just keeps on, like pushing her and trying to get her to open up to him a little bit, and then her eyes, the surrogate eyes, just go blank, and she shuts out.
Dang.
Like hanging up on him, but with her whole body.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah. Whew.
Well, I'm kind of surprised that Ghost in the Shell never did that. But
yeah, I know.
I mean, they have moments where like they dive into other people's brains, but it's just like they never. I don't think they've outright done that.
Yeah, or like in Black Mirror, where they block somebody, but instead of it just being your phone, it's your whole life, where they just become this sort of blurry thing, and you can't hear what they're saying.
That was trippy.
Yeah,
that was trippy.
I hated that so much because, like, because you can't talk to them, they can't talk to you, and you're just trying to communicate, but they've blocked you, so you can't talk to them anymore.
Yeah,
like if I blocked you right now, you couldn't see me, you couldn't talk to me. I'd just be this weird form. Yeah.
Oh man, that's nuts.
That was trippy. Yeah.
That's scary.
Black Mirror messed me up in so many ways. I was like, that's it. I'm going off the grid.
Ay, caramba.
Yeah.
Suddenly having your brain hacked doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah, I know.
Ay, caramba.
Yeah.
All right.
My gosh.
So, while you were talking and I was listening and doing that, I brought up the episode list for Ghost in the Shell. So I'm just gonna. You said you got through like the first 10 episodes, so we're like I know we said some of them, but I just want to go through the list and like see what we do.
How far I've gotten?
Yeah. Well, we talked about the first 3 episodes with the
geishas was the first one.
The geisha brain swap, and there was an agent that swapped bodies with the minister in order to gain secret intel. Then there was the guy who had his brain uploaded into a tank. Then there was the android one that we talked about.
Android wife.
And then we touched briefly upon it, but there's like a 2 or 3 episode like little startup for like the Laughing Man story that started with the Interceptors.
Oh yeah, the Interceptors. Oh gosh, that freaked me out too.
Yeah, you want to talk about constantly keeping an eye on your
like
workers and things like.
So people being able to see you through your phone, but it's people being able to see you through other people's eyes.
So how the entire Laughing Man case, how the story started is that one of the investigators that was still working on the case, because the investigation has been going on for years because they never found the guy.
Yeah.
They found something into the case that was related to their own department.
Yeah.
That was something about interceptors, which is basically cameras that are installed within like their visual cognition, like in their eyes.
Yeah, everybody in the department had no privacy, basically.
Yeah, everybody in the department had like no privacy, and as they're trying to figure it out, the cop passes on the information to Togusa of Section 9, but before they're able to meet up to talk about it, he dies through
somebody hacked his brain and he couldn't see anymore, and he crashed his car, right?
Basically, they I think they modded the interceptors in order to blind him.
Right, yeah.
Which screwed him up, and then he crashed his car and died.
Yep.
Which started the investigation into that, and then they found all that out. They thought it was going to be a huge scandal that was going to be put to rest, and then the Laughing Man made his reappearance in order to do his thing. But like the concept of interceptors is just like that is like you want to talk about like security settings, especially in this day and age where like they're like you're trying to put like secure things on like all this stuff and parental control stuff like that. Put cameras into people's eyes so you can constantly spy on them and know what they're doing. For a micromanaging boss, that would be their dream.
Yeah.
And I pray we never get to a point where that happens.
Yeah. Well, you know, my mom always says, she's like, what does she say? She says, if we end up having to get a chip inserted into like our arm or our eye or our thumb or something in order to make purchases and stuff, I'm going off the grid. I'm just leaving.
If I had to choose between the two, I'd rather take the chip.
Really?
No, but in between like just the interceptors and like the chip thing, I wasn't able to go off grid. I'd rather take the chip.
Yeah, I don't know. So there's this. I always think of when it comes to that, like being able to, like having all of your finances and stuff in your body, basically. I read this book, I think it was a YA novel when I was like 11 or something. It was called The Barcode Tattoo.
Right.
Where when you're like 17 or something, you get a tattoo of a barcode on your arm here. Right. And you use that that's like your credit card and everything. You use that to like scan things. It's your passport. It's everything that gets you through all the doors, gets you into everywhere you need to go.
Basically, everything that is you that is related to your money, your social security, your identity.
Everything on paper about you is there. But one thing that basically they never told anybody while they were giving them the barcode tattoos is they would also inject little tiny microbots into their body. So if you go off the rails, if you become a fugitive or a criminal, they can just, and then you're dead. Your blood boils. Yeah, you just die.
You did.
So yeah, basically you sign your life over. You're like, yes, I'm going to be good, or they're going to switch me off. So
that's nuts. It's nuts. But yeah, you go through the Laughing Man case, and then they're trying to retrace it, and then ultimately the case gets opened back up.
Yeah, and they're still looking for him. And doesn't he he looks different to everybody because he's hacked their brains and they see different people?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and as the case goes on, like all of that will get explained more as it goes through.
Yeah.
All right. So we got that. Following that, did you see the episode that had to do with like the hero from another country who was like a big symbol to like other people, and it turns out that he was cloned?
Oh gosh, no.
Oh wait, so you didn't? So you did not see that one?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so
did I not get to 10?
So you might have only gotten through 6.
What? Really? Okay. All right. I think that sounds about right.
Unless you saw something else, and then
I don't know. I was I was just sitting there working on art, and it was playing. So it was like, well, 6 hours later.
Yeah. True. Well, I mean, it's still you got through
enough to know what we're talking about here.
Yeah, you got through enough. I mean, there's like other plot, like other stuff that like you come across that like will expand the universe and like continue on to the story, but you watched enough episodes to get like a good grasp of everything.
Yeah.
So with all that from what you've only just seen.
Yeah.
like, because this is not going to mean much coming from me because I'm a little bit biased on the show because I love it so much.
Yeah.
Would you recommend this show to anybody who loves sci-fi?
I would, yeah. I mean, some of the stuff I would get kind of lost and I wouldn't quite understand what was going on, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's fair. Oh, I just need to warn you.
Yeah.
There is a particular episode coming up that I believe is called like Jungle Party.
Is there nakedness?
A little more than that. Okay, so I just need to tell you this in order to prep you for this.
Cartoon sex?
No, this one gets really, really okay. So it deals with like a wartime
cartoon blowjobs?
No, just okay. No, this is actually like really one because when I first immediately saw the show, I vomited so hard because this
really okay.
Well, I was a young kid when I first saw this one, so like this episode was like so bad. Like originally, like when originally aired like on TV in Japan and in America, it was initially either heavily edited or banned.
Wow.
This is it's the 10th episode of the show. It's called Jungle Party.
Jungle Party.
So basically it's a former militant from America that was part of like a huge military operation that is around Japan, and he is killing women by skinning them alive.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you're gonna see some imagery in this that's it's bad.
Okay.
It's like it's something to behold, and it gets a little intense at points. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that because if I don't give a heads up on that episode for people that have not seen the show, it can be pretty bad.
That's ridiculous. Oh gosh.
But it's a huge character episode for like one of the characters in Section 9, Bato.
Bato, right? The guy with the eyes.
Yeah, the guy with the white little Mentos looking eyes.
Yep, Mentos looking eyes.
I don't know how else to describe it.
Just call him Mr. Mento.
Hi.
Hey. Okay, yeah, awesome. Thanks for the heads up.
Because I could barely sit through that one, and I can sit through a lot of stuff, and I sometimes like have to brace myself for this episode. I'm like before I can even play it, anytime I'm like going through the series, I'm just like I have to pause. I'm like, okay, I have to make sure I only have water and I'm eating nothing else, and I'm like, okay, I went to the bathroom, everything like that. I'm like,
sweet,
okay, let's do it.
Yeah. I think something that was like that for me was that one episode of Love, Death, and Robots about the astronaut lady who gets stranded out in space, and she basically, for the trajectory of where she's flying, she has to throw something. So she sort of does a tourniquet on her arm and takes off her glove, and her entire hand freezes over.
Okay.
Then that doesn't work because it doesn't go the right way. She missed what she was grabbing for, so she has to snap her own arm off. And they show the whole thing, and it's very realistic animation. It is animated, but you almost can't tell. And just it was the worst. It was in the middle of the season or something, and I watched that one. I had been binging it up until that point, and then I was like,
I need a break.
I gotta go watch New Girl or something. Oh man.
Yeah, because
amputations freak me out as well anyways, so
I don't think there's really any amputations in this show, so I think you should be okay for the most part.
No. Very strange considering that it's all about cyborgs and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, you would think so, but I mean, still.
No. All right.
But yeah,
awesome.
that is. Oh wait, I have to ask one thing.
Yeah, sure. Shoot.
So there's this particular type of character in the show that is constantly around Section 9, the Tachikoma tanks.
Oh, those little blue things?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on them?
I mean.
No, just how do you just feel about them?
I don't know. They're kind of weird.
They're kind of in the same realm of androids and stuff like that, as they're pre already programmed. Yeah, programmed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just wanted to like get your thoughts on that because I'm like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like sometimes some of the people are like annoyed by them, but they're also like really fun though. But at the same time, it's just like
comic relief kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're a little more comic relief, but they're so badass because they're tanks that have machine guns in their hands.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I think the only one I really remember them from was the one with the guy with his brain in the tank.
Yeah, and then they're just letting them by, and then that one just goes, "Wow."
Yeah, wow.
It's just like you like, yeah, we're the same kind of thing, but I'm kind of impressed. I gotta say, I'm impressed.
Yeah. Oh man, what are they called again?
Tachikoma.
Tachikoma. Mm.
You'll hear the names being said more often as like the show goes on. Like you'll get the use of how the names are enunciated.
Yeah, like the main character, they just call her Major a lot of the time. What is her actual name?
Motoko Kusanagi, but Major is basically like a title that she is like given.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like you rarely hear her like her full name every now and again because everybody refers to her as Major.
Right. Yeah. Respect.
Oh yeah, you do not mess with.
You do not mess with the Major.
You do not mess with that woman.
Gosh,
she is one of the most badass female characters I have ever seen in a sci-fi show, and
goals.
Like oh my, she's right up there with Ripley from Alien.
Right? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
She's right up there.
Hell yeah.
Like I hold her in that high of regard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is Ghost in the Shell, and
Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, if you want to talk about it later on, the more if you go through it, I'm absolutely all right with that. So yeah, that was pretty much it, and then I'll also lend you my copy of the movie as well. So
sweet,
because that's an important. I always recommend people watch that because it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
So
I've got Metropolis as well that I'm looking to watch.
Oh yeah,
what episode did you mention that in? Was that in the dystopia?
Oh, Metropolis? Yeah. Like either Metropolis, like I mentioned it in the dystopia one and sci-fi because the original
original is a movie from the 1930s, right?
1920s. It was a silent film from the 1920s, and it's the earliest form of science fiction film that is 3 hours long.
Oh wow, yeah.
It's a sit-through, but it's really good. This one, the Metropolis movie that I gave you was an anime film from 2001, I want to say. That takes inspirations from that film itself, but also from a 1930s and 40s newspaper manga comic of the same name as well.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it's like a fusion of like two different Metropolis source materials.
Nice. Okay, awesome. Man, I am learning so much on this podcast.
Well, I learned a lot from you as well, so it's mutual sharing of knowledge.
Clink clink.
Clink clink. So yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this discussion on Ghost in the Shell. It's an awesome series, an awesome show. If you haven't seen it, you can watch. I believe you can see the movie on Hulu.com, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. I could be wrong. I don't know if it's still on there anymore or not. You can also check out Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, as well as its second season, second gig, anywhere where anime can be watched. I'm pretty sure it's on Hulu, but I could be wrong on that. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool.
This has been episode 10 of the General Geekery podcast of us talking about Ghost in the Shell. If you like what you were listening to, don't forget to give us a like either on Spreaker or on Spotify. Tell your friends about it and everything like that. You can follow us on social media at Facebook.com at General Geekery Podcast, on Instagram at General Geekery, and on Twitter at Gen Geek Podcast. You can catch me, Donald, on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and also on Twitch.tv at RyuzakiMK7, the links of which I'll post in the description for the episodes. Hannah, where can they catch you at?
You can catch me on Instagram at Pythian Legume and on Twitter, kind of, at Pythian Legume 2. And I stream every Monday at 7:30 with my party at Loaded Dice Adventures on Twitch.
It's an awesome D&D campaign. Everybody on there is super cool. I recommend them.
Oh yeah, we're doing a holiday one today, so it's fun.
Awesome.
Yep, it's gonna be great, full of puns.
Oh, and you can also check Hannah out at another podcast that she is a part of.
Oh yes, so you can check me out on Splankniks, which is a podcast that I do with my mom talking about all things nerdy, and you can find that, I believe, on Spotify, on iTunes, on basically anywhere, really.
Anywhere where podcasts can be listened to.
Anywhere podcasts are sold.
Anywhere.
Yeah, man, I gotta write these all down so I know what I'm saying. You did a really good job.
Yeah, don't. I do a lot of like memorization, like rehearsal stuff, because I do voiceovers like stuff a lot. So like I'm used to it.
Nice.
But we'll write notes for it. I promise.
Awesome.
So yeah, this has been episode 10 of the General Geekery podcast. For Hannah Kubiak, I'm Donald Kaczynski, and always remember, don't get cyberbrains yet. We don't want to get hacked and everything like that.
Yep.
Viruses on computer are already bad enough. But always remember, even if you are on the internet or uploaded to the internet, please don't upload yourself to the internet. You don't want to go into the dark web. But always remember, if you do,
they're going to the darkness.
Always remember to keep your geek on.
Keep your geek on.
All right, clink,
Always.
clink. Later, guys.